Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's history group. We are, of course, as usual, very pleased to have you here to share in the knowledge of our heritage and culture. We have with us this evening the Reverend Solomon Odoom, and he is going to talk to us about his observations on the similarities between Caribbean and Ghanaian heritage based on his reflections from living and working and doing archaeology research in both countries. He is a gifted scholar. He is both an archaeologist as well as a practicing minister, which I think is a really interesting combination from a cultural anthropology point of view. So I look forward to hearing his insights. His full bio is in your program, so I won't read it back to you. I don't like when people do that, so I'm not going to do it either. So without further ado, I introduce Reverend Solomon Odoom.
Good evening, sisters. Let me see, do we have a brother? Not yet. Okay. First of all, I would like to apologize for being late. Those of you who know me, they know that when it is 6, it is 6. And I managed to gauge the driving time, took into account how slow and fast some Barbadian drivers can do, and then evening rush hour. So put it all together, driving from Warrens here took me 45 minutes, which I wasn't anticipating. That I thought it would be like within 25, 30 minutes, have 15 minutes to relax, and then we go. So we are going to dig right into why I'm here. As you have read in the pamphlet, my name is Solomon Odoom. I am from Ghana in West Africa. I'm the pastor of the Hogard AME Zion Church, but the sign in front of the church I pastor reads African Methodist Church. And one day I was chatting with a friend and he said, "Where are you pastoring? Where are you? I want to come and visit." I said, "I pastor at African Methodist." "Oh, African? What them do there? You all do some obia and everything there?" And I'm like, "Hello, what made you ask that?" But you know that when you talk of Africa, you know all them things. I said, "I'm sorry. You are misinformed. Not only have I encountered that, I've also walked to a place where I identified myself, Solomon Odoom, and right away my accent gave me up. "Where you're from?" I said, "I'm from Ghana." "You're African? You marry 10 wives? Or how many you have? You all live on trees? Do you all have..." I mean, it went on till I had to take my time. Let me give you another shocker. I went to this function at the Independence Square, where the then government, that is, I had just come in here. That was 2008. And the government was honoring, I think, 2 women who started the gender ministry, something like that. And I happened to know one of them, so I was invited. I happened to sit by a renowned court pastor in Barbados. I'm not going to mention name, her or he. I was sitting behind this person quietly, And I got introduced to the person, and the first question said, I am Dr. this and that. We do a whole lot of missions in Ghana. By the way, do you speak English? And I look at the person, I smiled, and I said, can you understand what I'm saying? That was the only question I asked. And that cut. So unfortunately, I've never attended this person's church anymore. I mean, not anymore. I had wanted to visit, but I haven't made that trip because I don't know what question I was going to ask when I visit. In a sense, what I'm saying is that from observing and interacting and immersing myself in the Barbadian culture, I've noticed that there had been some ignorance whenever we hear of the term Africa. People have different conceptions about Africa. But then for the fun of it, in the year 2004, I visited this island. That was the first time I visited here. And I happened to had a lunch with the Vice-Chancellor of the University of West Indies and his wife and a friend. And he informed me that, do you know that about 60%, if I'm not wrong, of all the Afro-Barbadians mostly came from Ghana? I'm like, oh, hold it, are you serious? He said, yes. And this specific area has not been developed in terms of academics or research. So if you want to take it up, it is fertile, it's right there for you. I said, all right. He gave me a signed copy of his, and that came here as an intern at the University of West Indies and Codrington College. I had the best privilege to get to know what goes on at seminary and what goes on at the university and what goes on in the community. Let me give you one funny story that I always tell. One morning I was living in St. Peter, Maynard, walking down to the beach down at where they have constructed St. Charles, Port St. Charles place, was going there, and I met this man. I was just walking, met this man, and right away I greeted Mimawachi, which was good morning. And he looked at me like, wait, what are you saying? And I remembered that, no, I'm not in Ghana. I'm in Barbados. So I switched and I said, good morning. And he said, oh, all right, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing well. And I passed him. That made me really, 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 really sad in my heart. That a place where I could find people who, most of them were supposed to be my kinsmen and kinswomen, we could not communicate in our dialect, except I had to change it to a common English, which was all right. But I asked myself, what happened? What happened in between the times that a brother or an uncle could lose his entire dialect, that he could not hear a thing? The exciting part of it, though, was that there were some pieces of words that I could find in Barbados which were similar or which meant the same thing. Let me give you just one. Basa basa. I got to know that basa basa is chaotic situation. I also got to know one more. Kokonsa. Or, yeah, it's Kokonsa. Somebody has said it is somebody being, translated being somebody being malicious in somebody's business. I heard it here, and I heard it in St. Vincent, and I also heard it in Tobago with the same meaning, Kokonsa. So in the sense, there are some of things that still remain here. In fact, I visited a church, and I was introduced to a lady whose name was Miss Kwashi. See, I went straight and said, hello, how are you, in my dialect? What's it? She's like, I can't hear what you're saying. I said, but you bear a Ghanaian name. She's like, oh, really? I said, yes. Kwashi is a name in Ghana in the southeastern coast, that is in the capital, Accra. The people called Gas, G-A-S. They give names called Kwashi. So I immediately got it. So, my sisters and my brother, I have really enjoyed my stay here in Barbados, and I have also wondered. There are some things that are similar to us, that are still in existence, and then there are still, but the missing link is far wider than our similarities. I can talk about the food. I can talk about plantain, the way we eat plantain. We eat it green. We eat it fried, the ripe fried. We can also bake it. We have here conkeys made of ripe plantain, and I personally am a picky eater, and it's personal preference because of some medical issues. So there are certain things I don't, and then there are certain things I'm someone who will always go back and probably have to look at the ingredients put together and being done, and then make a decision when I find, myself in a new place with new food. So konki is one of the foods that I know it's similar to the way we use ripe plantain in Ghana. Even the use of the green banana leaves to wrap it, we have it there. It's the same thing. It's the same, only that the way it is baked, and okay, I am not even going in there. Cassava, we have it there. Dashin, we call it cocoyam. There is a certain kind of food that I found it in St. Vincent, but once I went to, I've forgotten the department store I went to, and they were selling it. It's called farine. We call it gari. When I went to St. Vincent, I realized that the process in which they make farine was the same process we have it in Ghana. In fact, as I'm speaking, I have some at home that I have, and it's like grits, as you call it, and we eat it raw. After it is processed, you can add sugar and milk and stir it up and just eat it. In fact, it is one of the staple foods for every student in Ghana. Every college student, secondary school student, you will go and do inspection, you will find that there will be gari, G-A-R-I, in their stuff. It is so beautiful. And then I also realized that there is in Barbados, there isn't much of hot and spicy food here, But I got to know that in Jamaica and Trinidad and St. Vincent, that our foods here in Barbados are kind of mild, but the foods in those areas are really hot and spicy. In fact, a friend of mine took me to Milos Hill right here just last week and said that, oh, let's go get some food. We went, I ordered some pork, nice, he ordered, and then I came back home and I started eating, and the food was so spicy and I couldn't eat anything. So I asked, there was an accent, and I was told, yes, the lady is from Jamaica. I said, okay, I understand. So we have these kind of food and its preparation still in existence, that we share those kind of preparations. I also know of kuku, which is Barbados' national dish. I don't know if macaroni pie is taking over that. I'm not sure. Somebody got to tell me. But, you know, kuku is prepared the way it is prepared in Ghana, except that is why I decided not to eat it, because I don't eat okra. And I can't believe when I first saw, what is this? They say it's kuku. You have your cornmeal and your okra mixed up, and I'm like, no. We have the cornmeal itself called banku, that you then prepare the okra stew on the side. So you dip your hand, not spoon or fork or nothing, just this beautiful fingers. You dip in and you dip in there, and then you roll your hand and then cut it so that the slime or the slimy stuff will not mess up your clothes, and then it goes down. It is so good for those who eat them. In fact, in Ghana, eat the banku, but not the okra stew. So the kuku and the okra, it's the same thing. What about breadfruit? In fact, in Ghana, we do not have breadfruit. I never saw breadfruit until I set forth in Barbados. And I was told, this is breadfruit. I said, how can we have bread that is fruit? So sorry, I cannot eat it. It sounds good, it looks good, I think it would taste good, but a friend of mine from Ghana, he has tasted it. He said, hey man, listen, this is real good. I said, okay, enjoy it. I'm saying all that to say that we have, in terms of our dishes, our food, we have similarities that is still in existence. What I'm saying is that when the Europeans took away my ancestors and dragged them across the Atlantic, what happened was they ripped, and that is my own expression, they were ripped of their identity. And for that matter, what was African was described as evil, cruel, nothing good can come out of Africa, and then polluted the mind of the people back home in Africa that, oh, if they were good, they wouldn't have been gone. Right now, they're all gone. You don't need them here. And so there had not been time of meeting together as a people. Each one is suspicious of each other, because one will say, you sold my ancestors out of slavery, and then the other one is like, you serious of what you're saying? And that conversation still goes on as I'm speaking. But what we can do, especially for those of us in the diaspora, that mentality of hearing Africa got to cease, because it is your place of heritage. That is who you are. You cannot be here and tell me, as a black woman, black man, and tell me that I'm a Barbadian. Yes, of course you are Barbadian. Then did you fall off from the ceiling to become a Barbadian? The answer is no. You were brought from somewhere. And unfortunately, your ties to where you're from was cut off. And for that matter, nothing of where you came from mattered anymore. I've heard many Barbadians telling me, I Beijing, ain't from nowhere Africa. And then when they see you wearing something like this, or what, where? Your African garb, where you got it from? And the comments, and I don't blame them, because they do not know. Now, let me talk a little bit quickly about slavery and then move it on to culture. My study of archaeology, and for that matter, anthropology, in the Cape Coast Castle, about the excavation that was done by my Professor Ankwanda in the Cape Coast Castle, revealed of the cruelty that our people, my people, went through before those who survived reached the shores of Barbados, before they were distributed across the islands. There were many finds of shackles. There were, in fact, the finds were so outrageous to comprehend what humanity had to go through. In fact, my first time of going to Cape Coast Castle, I came home and I could not eat, could not sleep, because, and then I know your question will come in about a pastor, anthropologist, archaeologist, and however you can describe it. I realized that the female dungeon, where they kept the female, the top of the dungeon was the residence of the governor and the people who came from England. And what, they came without their wives. And so, when they feel like they have to have some fun, they walk up the balcony, look down, and check and pick up. I want this one. And they will just come and pick her up, go scrub her, put her on a bed, in chain, one here, one there, one leg over there, one leg over there. No pleasure for the woman. And rape her horribly. And then drop her right back in. If you resist, that's the end of you. You know that interaction sometimes bring the outcome a child. That reminds you of the pain as a woman you had to go through. And then even the saddest part of it is to then, when you become pregnant, they keep you somewhere till you give birth, and then they take the child away from you, and you will never see your child anymore. So these were the things that I grew up knowing. Yes, it will be one of the toughest experiences humanity have ever. Yes, there had been Holocaust. I don't doubt that experience. But the experience of my people cannot be compared with any kind of atrocities done to humanity. And the funny thing is that they say we should shut up, we should not say anything about it. I will not shut up. I will speak about the inhumane way my people were treated. Or another one where the Church of England in the Cape Coast Castle was located, was at the top of another dungeon, that on a Sunday morning you will hear people singing. They were not singing Amazing Grace because they didn't know what it was, but they will sing a whole lot of hymns and preach. I don't know the kind of sermons they were preaching, and I don't have any doubt that some of my sisters and brothers in the Caribbean, and for that matter, the Afro-Barbadians and Afro-Caribbeans, abhor Christianity. I don't have any doubt about that, because Christianity was used to mess up my people. And for that matter, it was a sad, very sad experience. But the good news about it was that I believe true Christianity was not used when the people came to my country. Because if it was true Christianity as I understand it, and as it is meant to be, there wouldn't have been slavery. If they had taken my people, they would have taken them in a humane way, brought them and paid them for their work that they did. That is why I love the church that I attend, African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, which was a church started in the New York City, the Black Methodists who organized themselves and started. And so when I read the history of my church, it gives me hope that I did not choose to be a Christian wrongly, but whoever I am, I can still serve God, who is not discriminatory. And I don't know how the Bible was read. I believe they skipped that part where God is impartial, especially the book of Acts, where Peter had to visit Cornelius in his home, and God, it's something that I will talk about when you come to my church. That I'm not going to use that, even though it is part of it. Now, one thing also that was ripped off my people, that when I came here, I realized that it was gone. Religion, or spirituality, if I should put it this way, the spiritual nature of we as a people. We do not separate sacred and secular. For an African, it is interwoven. You cannot, my life standing here is not just some rice and chicken field and some little blood running through, and no. Standing here and you sitting here, we are body as we see it, we are soul, we are spirit. And for that matter, whatever is done, whatever we do, is interconnected with the spiritual realm. And for that matter, we have a way to communicate with ourselves with God in the spiritual world. And that is why when somebody dreams, you go and ask somebody, can you please help me understand my dream? I mean, as a pastor, people come and ask, I had this dream, and I said, oh Lord, I wasn't sleeping while you were sleeping probably. I don't know what you were doing the previous day. I don't know your issues that I got to be Joseph now and interpret some dreams for you. But in a sense, what I'm saying is that when I'm eating, these days, because I live in a, good, what they call it, tiled home, I cannot. But normally at home, whenever I'm eating, before I put food in my mouth, I had to put some on the ground. The understanding is that my father, who has passed away, my mother, who has passed away, my grandfather, and my great-grandmother, all of them are part of me, that wherever I find myself, they are present. And for that matter, if I'm eating, they need to eat some and have a taste of it. Not only eating, drinking. I don't drink alcohol, but normally those days, whenever I'm drinking water, I will either drink it and then the last little drop, pour it on the ground, or I will pour it first before. That does not make me unchristian. That is who I am. Getting connected with the people who are surrounded, and any Christian who want to challenge that, I want to challenge that Christian in the sense that when you look at Hebrews chapter 12, it says, now that we are surrounded by a host of people who have gone before us. In fact, when you go to, in Barbados, our parishes have been named after who? Saints. Where are they? Do you know the Saint George? Have you seen St. John before? You see, in the Christian world, all those departed are called saints, and we revere them. In fact, when my first time of coming to Barbados was All Saints Anglican Church in St. Peter. They were celebrating their patronal festival, and I came to be their main speaker. And I asked myself, where are all those saints? They're all gone. Guess what? We also have our ancestors who have gone before us, but they are not dead. Because for me as an African, as a Ghanaian, my mother, my father are not dead. It's only their bodies that are messed up in the soil, but their spirit still lives on. That is why my daughter was named. I named my daughter after my mother. And guess what? This beautiful girl has everything of my mother, a little less of me, because I believe that this mother of mine still lives. And because she is now spirit, she is not limited to anything. In fact, I have the belief that as I'm standing here, she is hanging around checking me out. And if she was here and being late, I know for sure I would have gotten some lashes when I go home. And so she wasn't happy. But she would also understand that it's not like intentionally sitting home and sleeping and then wake up like, okay, let me go. She knew that was. So in a sense, for us as a people we need to connect with those who set forth before us. And for that matter, as Africans having our ancestors, it's not anybody though becomes an ancestor. There were some qualifications. Someone who dies in an accident cannot qualify to be an ancestor. That is what we know, because your spirit, a person have to die at home peacefully, or you have to attain a certain age or a certain status. You have to have children and your children's children and all that in order, because the ancestral world is governed by great men and women. But that one, personally, I am not all that fazed about it, because ancestors are ancestors. They've dead and past. And that's why last year, when my cousin, the chief of my town, came to visit me, the Pan-African movement requested, we have conversation, and they requested that, the ancestors who came through by the sea, Atlantic shores, and came here, and who died, and those who were buried in the Newton slave grounds, if you could go and have he said sure. And he went and offered libation at Browns Beach, and then went to Newton Graves Cemetery and offered prayers there. And let me tell you what happened. There was a lady who was there, came, and all of a sudden, the lady was off balance. She was crying. I mean, if it was to be in Ghana, the priest would have done something for her, and she would have spoken probably a dialect that she doesn't even understand. It is not witchcraft. No, it is not. It is life of the African. Let me come back to something that is so dear to my heart. And I think I made mention of it when I first introduced myself. It's about the language, the dialect. But I've heard that some of the schools, in fact, I know of a teacher friend of mine who knows, guess what? Mandarin. You know Mandarin language? What is it? Chinese. And she's a black woman. And I've heard that some students are learning Mandarin. I don't have any problem with that. My question is, can we as black people also at least learn one language? Because guess what? The language that I speak is written. I mean, we have books. I learned to read and write and speak my dialect when I was at school. I learned it. Yeah, I spoke it because I'm from the king's home. So, everybody can speak it. But then if you are from that homes or a palace, you got to have a certain way of speaking, which I learned it from my father. I learned it from my grandfather. But my thing is that, why is it that some basic things could not? There are books out there, the phonetics and all that, it is there that we can learn. Why can't we introduce it to some of it? I mean, Kiswahili in Tanzania and Kenya, it is a language that could be learned. Akan, which is Fancy and Twi, it is there. The Ewe, the Gans, it is there. Can we pick up one and learn it in our schools to really feel good about ourselves? We are not just Euro-Barbadians, are we? There are Euro-Barbadians. And there are Afro-Barbadians. I'm speaking about Barbados. Can we do that? This is something I believe we should do something about, so that at least we will be proud of the people we are. That has been taken away from us, but we want to go back. That's why this time is called Sankofa. Sankofa means return back to what you've left behind. We need it. We need it. We need to understand who we are as a people. Yes. There is one thing I also want to talk about. Maybe, I don't know my time, but let me quickly run through this about names. I lived in the US among Black Americans, and I'm living here among Afro-Caribbeans. I'm also a pastor, so I do a lot of baptism, especially the infants, because our church baptizes infants. And sometimes the names that are brought to me for the children to baptize, sister, it is really hard to pronounce. And I asked, so, what's the meaning of this name? Where do you get this name from? It's a name that we, the father and the mother, we put it together, and then we came out with this. And these children, they grow up and they even don't know who they are. At least, here are some names for you in Ghana. And this is some names for you. The day you were born, if you were a woman or if you were a female or a male, here are your names. Very simple and easy. We got Sunday, boys, Kwesi, girls, Akosia or AC. Monday, Kojo or Kwajo or Ajua. Tuesday, Kwabena or Kobina. See, I was born on Tuesday, if you remember. Kobina or Kwabena, Abena. Wednesday, Kweku or Akuya. Thursday, Yao or Ako or Ya. Friday, Kofi, Efua. Saturday, Kwame, and then female Ama. So you can go and check it out. It's very, very, very. So when the day you are born, that very day that name is not you have it already. So nobody will call you Hey. You know, my first time of somebody calling me Hey was an American. Called me Hey. I said, hello. I have a name. Hey is interpreted in our society as like, hey. It's very annoying for someone to look at you and call you Hey. No, you gotta call me by my name. And then you get these names, and then after a week, it is known then, and it's still now, that when a child is born, the child is coming from the spiritual ancestral world to come and visit the family. So when the child comes to the parents, the child stays for 7 days. That 7 days, the child is surrounded by his or her friends and the people from the spiritual world, checking the father and the mother to see if they are good parents to nurture that child to grow up to be a very valuable person in society. So after 8 days, if the child survives, then we celebrate. The child is named. That's why we call it naming ceremony. I think there was a slide somewhere there. There we go. A naming ceremony is huge. It is huge because it is one aspect of the passage, the 6 passages of life. The birth and the naming is one of them. Now here, if you Look so close, there is a pastor right in there. So you don't need to come to the church for the child to be named. Right there, when the child is named, normally the name of the child is given by the father. Sorry, sisters, I'm sorry, but you don't have an opinion about it. It is the father who decide who to name the child after. In fact, my son should have been named after my father, but my father had it wasn't like my father was a bad father, no, but my aunt had been so much influence on my life. She had been there for me. I mean, did everything. So I said, you know what, Dad, you relax. God will bless you with a grandson, but this one is for my aunt. So my son is named. So you know that a male or female could be named after. Female or male, it doesn't really matter. So during that day, they bring the family. There is the nucleus family, the close family, from the woman and the man come together and then give the child a name. And then after 3 months, that is what we call outdooring. That is where the entire village comes around with drums and ensemble, and they come and they dance and celebrate and eat, and then they present gifts to the parents for the upkeep of the child. It is the best thing you can ever have, because once you have that, it means you've been set up for life. In the sense, now you carry the name of the family with you. You get me? So that wherever you go, your name is mentioned. Odoom, we know where he's from, and then they will trace you straight to my father's home. So that is how naming is done, so that you. And I think that is something we've lost. You know, all the violence and the craziness that is going on, people do not know who they really are. They don't. Because if you have value for yourself and who you are, how in the world could you pull a gun and go shoot at somebody just for the fun of it? I'm not saying these things don't happen in Ghana. It does happen. But majority of us do honor. Because when you do that, you bring disrepute to your family's name, and you make your mother or your father so sad and crazy. And I don't want to do that. So naming ceremony is a huge, huge, huge thing in Ghana. I know you all want to. Do you want to know something about funeral? Yes. Funeral in the sense that I'm a pastor. I happen to bury people. I bury people in Ghana, in US, and here. Here's the difference. US and here kind of okay together. It's the same. It's not. But in Ghana, when somebody dies, traditionally, they will put the person down for, if, those days when there was no doctor and those things, if they come and you're not breathing, you will lie down for about a day or two to make sure that the ancestors are satisfied with you to join them. And then once that is done and you don't wake up, then they have some herbs and things that they use to embalm the body. And then they will have a 1 week ceremony or celebration The 1 week celebration is where the people will come. Oh, don't make me miss home, okay? There are some pictures of home. 1 week ceremony is to make sure that the ancestors, it's like that week is a journey from the physical world to the ancestral world. So that means the spirit of the deceased is still hanging around, because a proper funeral is what then seals your, and this is a funeral celebration right there. You got it right. So when I got here, funeral celebration is marked with white and black. I remember I went to a funeral here first time. I found something red. Like, Reverend? I said, yes. I said, what? I said, Reverend, no. Go change it. I said, what? It's funeral. I said, yes, but funeral is white and black. I said, oh, sorry. Here is a typical, this is a king at a funeral. So after the 8 days, then the funeral, normally those traditional old days is 40 days. That's where all the family meet. But today in Ghana, funeral is a huge thing. Woo! It's a huge celebration. If you go to a funeral, you would never know that it's a funeral. No, you may think that it's like a carnival or something. But that is also part of how modern society have even stretched the traditional idea that we got to send off our beloved in a proper way, befitting funeral, so that the ancestors will welcome her or welcome him, not just here, you know. Let me give you something about me. When my mom died and I was still a young boy. But when my dad died, I was grown enough that I organized everything, my father's funeral. And I said to my father's family, I said, well, my father just died. He died, I think, on a Tuesday. I said, we're going to have the funeral on Saturday. And his family, that is his brothers and sisters, like, sorry, no. Your father was not a chicken or a sheep or a goat who died and then you just go and dump it. Your father was a respectable man. And then they started giving me all his accolades. And I just said, hello, thank you very much. But then I asked, who is going to help me bear the cost of burying my father? If you couldn't say me and how much, you all don't know my pocket. So, and over there, when your father dies, it's you, the son, who buries the father. I said, I am going to bury my father. Anyone who has issues, come and deal with me after. I thought I was done a great sin until I came to US, and I'm like, oh, praise the Lord, I did the right thing. But in a way, what we do is that we make sure that all the family members know. I don't know if you remember when my brother died, and I think he died in, I forgot, in May or something. I went in June, and everybody goes, has he been buried? I said, no. Oh, Reverend, why is it that he's keeping so long? I said, it doesn't matter, so that I can go and do what is necessary and all that. So we celebrate, in fact, we celebrate life. The coming into life and then going out of this life is a big celebration. Let me finish it with also herbal. You know, we talk about health. Normally, us processed foods are not something in our books. Even when I'm not all that old. I'm old enough to be old. But growing up as a child, I remember, and I know my father was a herbalist who will go when somebody is sick. I remember I had a high fever. I mean, not high fever. I had high temperature. And you all know neem tree? Neem tree. Yeah, he went, got the leaves, got the bark, and then a little bark of a coconut, and then mango tree and mango leaves, put it all together, brought it home. My mother boiled it, put it, and then when it really boiled, let it sit a little bit and put it in a bucket, put in front of me, sat down, had a blanket covered around me with a little stick in it. You know, I stir it up, and the vapor in it just got me, and I sweated and all that. When I finished, we do that for a little while, got out, and then put some of same thing in a bucket, add cool water to the bathroom, bathe myself. After doing that, within 10, 15 minutes, I was as healthy as a horse. No doctor, no pharmacy, no, Barbados, we have what they call the drug administration. You got it. These are potent, and I'm talking about potent medicine that cured different. Oh, I know some of you know that I don't like Mobi. You know why? Okay, that will end, and then I open up for questions. When I came to Barbados in 2004, early morning when I woke up, the guy that was staying in the same house with me got up and said, "Oh, Rev," I said, "Yes, you need to drink some of this. It's really good." I said, "Okay, get me a little glass, put some in it." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Mobi." I was going to ask him what it's made up of, but I just pick it up. One gulp, two, put it down. I said, "This is very bitter. What kind of bitter thing is this?" Don't forget, I have left Ghana for 10 years, so I'm acquiring some sweet tooth taste. He's like, "It's called Mobi." I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's a bark of a tree." I said, "Hold on. Did I complain to you when I came here that I'm sick or something?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay, then you drink it." I said, "This thing, when someone is sick, then my mom or somebody will do that, and then you will take and you drink, and it will cure you. But right now, I am healthy. So thank you very much, and I'm not going to drink it again." And that was it. When the king came over to visit, we visited a friend, and he said, "Oh, bring it out to me, I will drink it." I said, "You? Nana, you all right?" And he loves it. "Yeah." So he got it. "Oh, this is very refreshing." I said, "Good for you, not me." So in a sense, we use different kinds of leaves, bark of trees, roots. In fact, I remember somebody broke his leg by playing football, and was brought to my father. I was there. What happened was my father went, got all the herbs and the barks and all that put together, and then bound the leg with those medication, put some sticks and straighten it up. I was there. The brother, he gave him some gin. I mean, locally brewed gin, distilled gin, 100% alcohol. He gulped it, and my boy was out. So they pull it out, straighten it up, put the sticks on, and then covered it with I don't know what it was, and then wrap it up. And then got a chicken. They brought a chicken. And then they broke the leg. It was the right leg. So the right leg of the chicken, and did the very same thing to the chicken as they did to the young man. 3 days. They caught the chicken, checked it out, tested it, and it was almost healed. Guess what? That meant that brother's leg was going to be healed. It was untied and it was already forming. And he did it again. I know that brother, he is still alive as I'm speaking. He stopped playing football, but it's not because he was injured. In fact, most Ghanaians who play football overseas, when they get injured, they go back home and go through some of these treatments. So, sisters and brothers, I know that we have rich stuff back home in Ghana and in Africa waiting for us. It is ours. In Ghana, as I'm speaking right now, this year, the government of Ghana has declared the year 2019 as the year of return. That is all of you, all of us who are Afro what? It's time for us to go back home. You can go and stay as long as you want, buy a piece of land, build your own house, have your own business, take a name upon you. If you ain't married, you can get a nice looking young man to marry. If you marry to take your wife, your husband there, go and you will not regret. Let's stop this looting of the Chinese. I'm sorry. They are looting what belongs to us. Let's go and claim what is ours. Thank you. Bring it out. Oh, she was telling me about festival. I know. You see, I got carried away. Can you please show a little bit of the festival? Yes. This is the king of Aguna Bobikuma. He is my cousin who came to visit us. And this is when he was put in the palanquin to parade the whole city. And then this is the Queen Mother. In fact, on this coming Saturday, on, is it VOB or one of the stations, I will be interviewed by this lady, Carol Toppin, about the role of women and Queen Mother, so I will be speaking about that. But this is, both of them are my cousins, actually. So that's the Queen and the King. And actually these photos were taken by who? My own niece, my brother's first daughter, and she and I are really good and close. And during the parade, these are all another queen, sub-queen mother. And during the festival, these people bring stuff. You know, here it looks like it's a food hamper or something, isn't it? But over there, it's in a different way, anything, and then they bring it to honor the king, so that he, in turn, will use it to serve his visitors who will come to the festival. In fact, this year, this is side note, this year at our festival, which I am praying, I know I will be there, the festival in Ghana, in our village, there's going to be a day set aside for the return of the Barbadian ancestors and the Afro-Barbadians. It is the that is the last week in July. The last week in July, that is the last Wednesday. Where's my, check your calendars quickly, and then try to, oh, I got my calendar here, so that will be good. February, March, April, May, June, July. Okay. The festival begins on the 25th of July, and then 26th, 27th, 28th. The 29th of July is the day of return. What will happen on that day is that early morning around, the latest will be like 6 o'clock in the morning, we are hoping to host some of you who want to come. And the priest, the traditional priest, the Asafo company, that is the soldiers or the fighters of the land, they still in existence. They don't fight anymore, but it's still there as a symbolic. They and the traditional priest and the king and the people of the land will go to the mausoleum where they bury the kings and the queens, and have a monument where there will be ceremonial meal shared between the living and the dead, where the ceremonial meal is made of yam, mashed yam mixed with palm oil plus hard-boiled eggs. That one you all know. We put it together, and then we call it eto, E-T-O, and it will be divided in half equally, and the eggs too, not one egg, every egg will be divided in half. And what we'll do is that they will spread half of the meal on the monument and the ground there, with the understanding that the ancestors he came to pray for and assure them that he's taking them home will be there to share with the meal with the ancestors who are there already, so that they will unite. And then the half will also be distributed among the living, those who are coming from Barbados and those in the village will all eat together, and then prayers will be offered, and then we'll come back. And when we come back home at the palace, that is where there will be a celebration of the return of our sisters and brothers, which will include, there will be Barbadian meal, and I'm hoping that nobody will cook cuckoo, no. We'll have Barbadian meal, and then we'll have Ghana meal together, and we'll all share with some music and all that. And then after that, there will be open for families to host you, to be at home. You can go to the richest person. If you want to enjoy being rich in Ghana, you can get that. And you can get the poorest. You can also enjoy that, so that when you come back, you have. And then the year 2020, it will be the year for Barbados. That the king, we're hoping that the festival over there will be done in such a way that he and some people from Ghana will also come here and do almost the same thing, so that there will be that interchange, intersister. But it will be good to experience it right there, so that when you come here, you will even understand it better. Thank you very much for your time. Now I believe the door is open.
I really don't have a question, because the other night I was talking with somebody about being an African, this Asian person, and because most people really don't know their history, the first thing they say is, I ain't no African. That they don't know the connect. So when they don't know the connect, they just figure, well, I was born here, my grandmother's here, this and that. So in order for things to change, like you were saying that, learning words or whatever, we can't even get there until we realize that we are part of the diaspora. That no matter if you're in France, if you're here in the United States, that we connected. We all came on one boat. We got dropped over there. I got dropped over here. That a lot of us are relatives and we just don't know it. And until we get to that point, which is very difficult, even though all this modern technology, we're not there yet.
Yes.
We don't realize, like I've been to Ghana a couple times and they did have the door of return. This was 2007 at Amina Castle.
Yeah.
And it was the anniversary and all the kings and their wives were there, the celebration. So, once we can feel good about ourselves, then we'll be able to move forward. But until then, you know, it's been hard. You know, there's a movie called 500 Years, and they talk about what you're talking about. That the further you get away from your base, you do think that you're European, but you're not. So we're in a sad state.
In fact, that is a sad situation. But I can also want to assure you that in my little way, and I will speak for me and my people back home because my brother, my king, has given me the permission to state that we are going to do whatever we can to help at least the Barbadian to experience how rich heritage we are missing, because there is even something in Ghana, and it's true, that if you do not get proper naming, if you are not named properly, your life doesn't get stable. In a sense, what we're saying is that stability comes when you know who you are. And sometimes we don't know who we are. You know why? Because we've not been exposed to what we know about. It was when I traveled to the Western world, when I came to US and came to Barbados, that I realized how awful Africa is painted. So who would want to associate him or herself with that kind of attitude? Not me. Yes.
Sorry, there was a channel that used to come through. I've been here for about 5 years. That used to come on CBC here. Does anybody know about it?
The African channel still comes on.
Is it still on?
The African
Okay,
channel
I
still on.
didn't see it. And so I used to watch it all the time because it's so good. It shows all, and here is Barbados channel. It shows different countries. It's not on anymore.
It's changed.
It's not on anymore.
It's still on, but I think it has changed. The concept has changed.
The concept has changed. So when I was here, it was really, especially the young people, all that they're doing, the older people, all the wonders. It's an independent channel. It still exists other places, but some places saying that it's on, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So there is exposure here in Barbados, and a lot of other places, about what Africa is all about and all the riches of it. So I think, in a way, if I could just say here, and I know I went to Africa in 72, 73, long time ago.
I was a boy.
Yeah, I often say before you were born, but to the 6th Pan-African Congress, I went from east to west Africa to deliver money to the liberation movements at the time,
Yes.
73 and so on, right? And my son, he went about in the 80s to discover his roots.
There you
So
go.
he went and lived in the desert in Mauritania, and some nomads came up to him with the same potion you were talking about before, and a big hole, he was dying. They said, "Come here, brother." They took the sap from the tree, put it on the hole, boom. I got a phone call, your son is dying, you know? They took him to the tree, put the sap on the hole, and that was it. So he did that for about, I don't know, a year or so. He was there for 8 months. But I'm going to say, there are a lot of people who do not know their ancestry, but there are a lot of people who do. So you have to be careful. Like Sankofa, I came because I went to Atlanta many years ago. We used to have a national arts festival in the summer. And so I got a plate which we represented Sankofa as a lovely drawing of African or an African American. And I have it there as one of my treasures, so I came, because I was drawn to that. But just to say, be careful because not everybody doesn't know it, right? And a lot of people want to know more.
Yeah.
So you have to do a fine line between saying who doesn't know and who knows.
Thank you.
And I find that there's a big resurgence of people who want to assume their African heritage, want to just read and know and wear the African garb, and just even here in Barbados, the movement's here, you know. So just make that balance.
That's good. In fact, I decided to choose this area in the sense that it is time. We cannot wait any longer, because the ignorance supersedes those who know. And I can tell you, hold it, I can tell you, it is true. I live here in 10 years. If I had worn this, because there have been certain times that I've worn something like this in the bus.
Yes.
And people look at me like, and then I've also, some people will come, That's my brother. I love this. Yeah, it is there. The balance is there. But it is, to me, we don't know much. And for that matter, we need to bring the awareness. In fact, Nana is saying to me, we're trying to bring out some videos and to exchange some videos and trying to see. In fact, I spoke to 1 or 2 radio stations and asked them, when I first came here, there used to be on Sunday afternoon, there was a gospel music from Africa. I remember. It was on Sunday afternoon between either 2 and 3, that they only play gospel music from Africa. And I said, I want to resurrect that. And they said, well, we need some sponsorship before. Yeah, that kind of thing. All right. This lady first, and then you, and then you. Yes.
I first want to thank you, Solomon Odoom.
Yes, ma'am.
For delivering the information that you have. I think you know that we met in the archives very briefly in the distance. I wanted to ask you how you see Barbados as it relates to the whole subject of Christianity and persons who were enslaved, brought here, stripped completely of their humanity. One of the main ways it was done was to remove knowledge of their own, what the word would be, religions. And your movement seems to, and your life is so tied to Christianity, and yet so tied to your, I'll say your home base, your cultures that you've expressed, and you're encouraging us to think about 2020 in those terms as well.
Yes.
For me, I see a huge conflict there because Barbadians are very much tied to Christianity. If a Christian woman in a church was to use a healing method that you mentioned there, and it was known within the persons in the church, it is highly likely in the Christian church here, it's highly likely that it would be termed obeah. I have high respect for obeah, by the way. I have high respect for Muslim religion, Christian religion, all religions. I do not. I am no longer affiliated to any Christian church.
Okay. But I invite you to come and worship with us.
I'm no longer a Tory woman. Because I have this high respect for all. And I'm very interested to hear how you see the removal of that type of because it's all Eurocentric, the whole Christian thing is Eurocentric, and moving towards the Afrocentric. Okay. Without removing such a close bond to Christianity.
Okay.
I mean, to me, I see the conflict there because when you cannot examine who you are as it relates to Africa without examining and coming to terms with how your ancestors came here, what happened to them, and what happened to them between the 1600s, right down into the 1800s, right down into the 1900s, right down into 2000. As a nation, we are a very young nation.
Yeah.
And I am not going to be alive, or you, when I do believe that the people who are being educated now to become more Afrocentric, I do believe that the land that we live on today will have embraced and gone all the way back. And it is coming. And it is, if Christians want to interpret the coming of Christ again, they should interpret it also along the coming back.
Of the African people.
The coming back, right?
Yeah.
For me, on a personal level, most people in this room know I do a lot of family research for people. I have a lot of scenarios that occur when I'm working with people. And my experience is that a lot of Black Barbadians, people who you know are Black Barbadian, regardless of how light colored they are or how dark they are, they have not, a lot of people have not considered past a certain point. Like they'll talk to me about the early 1900s, they'll talk about 1800s. And when I start to move people into going back and going back and go back, and we're able to make that connection, because I've been able to make that connection because the name and all the channels I went through, the connection to their enslaved ancestor, it is a huge emotional point. And it tells me that the emotion alone shows that there's a reverence. Even if they don't recognize that what's happened to them is a reverence.
Yeah.
Right? So the point that I make during a journey like that and at a time like that is because they see it there. They see that the Christian church had them enslaved. If we're looking especially in St. John and at some of their who owns their ancestor, they see reverence on. So I have that in my family.
Okay.
And there's a conflict. I don't try to de-Christianize them, but I certainly try to remove that veil of comfort that they have in being of the Church of England, or being of the Moravians, or being
of the Methodists,
with absolutely no knowledge of any religion that really is a spirit is within them. So
all right.
I've said a lot, but I think that is a challenge. My scenario has unfolded where my DNA shows clearly that I have a 26% Benin and Togo, 14% the Ivory Coast, and 4% in Mali. And it was a huge, it did not come as a surprise to me because I know my family. I know pictures and I know my family by research. But it has been a huge journey for me in exploring those countries. And maybe that's a point where people, you have made a statement, so many people are from Ghana, have roots in Ghana. But I think we have to urge people to do their DNA, to just do that first thing. It will also show you're European, because my total African DNA is 48% and my European is 52%, which doesn't surprise me either. But I think it's very important for you to do that and to understand the whole picture.
Right.
But I think it's very important to stand back and have a close look at why you don't know, why we are ignorant. And the reason we're ignorant is because it was hundreds of years of being Eurocentric through the Church of England and all the ancillary churches that feed off of.
Let me. If you remembered in my statement of identifying myself as a pastor and being not just a pastor, as a Christian, and I also said that if the Christian church was to do what the Christian church was supposed to do as the tenets of Christianity, there wouldn't have been slavery, because the people would have been brought here in their own willingness and be brought here to work for a pay and to establish themselves. I remember I made mention of that. But let me tell you something. As far as Christianity is concerned, Christianity comes to enrich the culture of the people. But then it is the people who take that Christianity, and not only Christianity, every religion, Be it traditional religion, African traditional religion, or Christianity, or Muslim, or Hindu, or what. It is the people who practice these religions who then sit down and manipulate and manage it to suit their whims and caprices. Some are for the good and some are for the bad. And for me, today Christianity in Ghana, you will be surprised to know that the traditional Ghanaian life, as I said, there is no sacred and secular. It is meshed up in the sense that the Ghanaian know, or the Akan knows, that there is the supreme being, which is God. And for that matter, we acknowledge God. That is, no one made that God, it's God. And so we have a saying in Ghana that before the Europeans came to the African knew God, and it is there. In fact, we have a tree. It's like the baobab tree, but it's bigger than that. It grows bigger. We call it Nyamidia. In fact, when we say Nyame is God. So anything extraordinary, we ascribe it to God, in the sense that if I want to gain control over you, I got to do everything possible to strip everything of you to meet my personal demands, not what the demands of what I believe in. And for that matter, that is the problem we've had. And I'm glad that you made mention of it, that how many Barbadians even know where the archives is in Barbados, and how many Barbadians have even visited, even how many scholars have been at UWI, have studied, and have even ventured to know some little history of Barbados. Not that much. So this is the time for us to open up ourselves. And I would say that it took Jesus Christ 12 men and about 700 people to bring Christianity all across. But I will also say that I have not regretted being a Christian. And I understand my Christianity better with the eyes of an African. And I thank God for those who did what we call liberation theology. I don't know if anybody is aware of that. The liberation theology, that came because when I was going through seminary, the liberation theology was at its peak. And my professors had studied. So it will amaze you that the people who are in the church hierarchy in Ghana, most of them now are my contemporaries, because we studied under some great men and women who opened our eyes to see the best side of Christianity and the worst side of it. And we opted for the good side. In fact, when I grew up in a church where, when I was growing up, you could not drum in a church. All that you will have was this old dead pipe organ that the guy would just press and press and press before he could just make a sound. As a pastor or a reverend minister, I could not go to church in this. As a Ghanaian, then I got to wear my black shirt, my black collar, my black suit in a temperature of how many degrees in the summer. So this is the kind of Christianity they sold to us. But thank God of His grace, I would say the African church has brought out a new the new Christianity. Yes, people take every religion to the extremes. That one, it is given. Just because they know, they will try to make the ignorant be more ignorant by suppressing their thinking. matter, I want to say that it is true. People need to check their read back, and for that matter, their DNA. I 100% agree with you about that. At the same time, yes, Christianity did horrible things. So is Islam. Because don't forget, slave trade in Africa began with Islam.
But it's a totally different experience for an enslaved person in Africa prior to...
Not in Africa. They took them to...
Africa is European soul change and cut off in Middle East. Now you call it in Middle East. It's all Africa. So I know you're an African. I am Barbadian nationality, African ancestry, and a European ancestry. I'm saying to you that
okay, you hold up the thought. Hold it. I have some people. Hold on. I have some people who want. So we can do some exchanges on that one. But I want to offer some time for others so that we can. Yeah, I have a young lady here who wanted to.
We actually have 2 questions from our social media.
Oh. So
the first one, you can probably attack one after the other.
Okay.
Just so we can save time for the officers in here. The first one is, both of them are from Natasha Bino.
Okay.
She would like to know, how can Barbadians call on our ancestors if we don't know their name and who they are? And she would also like to know that the textbooks and sources state that Africans sold to other Africans, and she wants to know if you can elaborate on that.
Thank you very much, Natasha, for that beautiful question. This is the question that comes up everywhere. Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American, that is wherever the African and the diaspora meet. And I want to say something about it to rest it, if it could rest or it could not rest. Let me ask you a question. I know, Sister Athleen, you have your sister, what's her name? Marcia, and your sister Diane. Think about it. How will you feel for someone from the middle of nowhere to take your sister Diana, and then you go home and Marcia is gone? You will be jumping in the air and sing hallelujah, praise the Lord. They are gone. I don't know. It doesn't matter how you ladies don't get along or whatever. Listen to me. And let me look in there and I look at you. You have no idea how I feel about me coming to Barbados to see people who are like me, who probably share the same DNA like me, and have not known who they are for how many years. And when we look at it and trace it historically, we know that some were taken away, not by their will, not by somebody selling them, but out of greed of somebody and some people. And how can you feel about going home not having your family with you? You think you don't know the pain some of us, if not all of us, also feel. And that is why I personally applaud my government, the Ghana government, for opening the door and saying that we had a brother called Joseph. Come back home. Come back home. This is your home. Those 1600 issues, we can dwell on it every day. Guess what? Our ancestors were at fault. Some were at fault. Some of the ancestors in the diaspora also were at fault. Should we continue fighting and button our heads together and check and see who is right or who was right. That time is gone. That time is past. Now, yes, we will read them. We will have knowledge about them. But today, as I stand here, I want to know that you are my family and I am your family. Whether you are in Barbados or you are in Ghana or you are where. So, for my black Afro diasporans, if I should use the term loosely, I want to let you know that you're not lost. You are not lost. You are precious. You are a royal. A royal doesn't mean the Queen of England or the Queen of Sweden. No. You are royal in your own right. They are royals because of what they gain from you and I. They took some of the best and made them work to get whatever it is to enrich themselves, and then when we talk of reparation, then it becomes a big issue. Okay, so what I'm saying is, it is sad, but we don't need to dwell on them. We are a new generation. A new generation. All that I'm saying to you is, you have a place back home. Your family is calling you to come home. And it is not just political propaganda. It is a reality. For me, if you come to Ghana today and you tell me you want to come and stay, the land that my father and my mother left for me, it's not just for me. It is for me and my generation to come. You will have a piece to put your building and call it your own home without anybody harassing you.
So step one, as a nation, there is true national movement to recognize and discover who your enslaved ancestor is, was. Use the Christian religion's theme of resurrection. Resurrect your ancestor and let them live again through you. How you deal with your life. Because that's what you're basically saying.
Yeah.
And you're resurrecting in the new land. You're resurrecting with the knowledge of Africa instead of flying to England every year, going to school in London every year, seeing all of that as the most wonderful thing. That's what you're saying.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
You guys are handling some really important issues. Right? But can I ask a very much narrower question, please? Your father was a healer.
Yes.
Who carries on that tradition? How does that tradition die away with you?
Well, thank you for that question. Growing up as a child, I accompanied my father. I knew some of the herbs. I knew some of the things that he used to do. But sadly, I didn't get into it because I didn't live there. I left home when I was 17 because of the death of my mom. That was too great a blow to me as a person, as a young person. And then also through education, I moved from home. So I didn't get that opportunity to follow up in the line of my dad. But there are certain things, some leaves and some herbs that I still know. I still remember those. But someone to follow his footsteps, I would say, in his own family, I would say nobody. But in that same town or village, as we call it, there are some people who still practice the use of herbs to heal. In fact, it isn't even given to some specialized people. It is a known fact that there are certain basic, like Tylenol, aspirin, Aleve, some basic things that does some basic things, it is known that if something is, let's say if you have malaria, there is basic usage of herbs to treat malaria that you don't need to go to a traditionalist. So there are certain things that is basic, but then there are certain areas too that need specialists. Even but let me surprise you, in Ghana, as I'm speaking, there is a center that has been opened for research and the usage of herbal medicine. It's still in practice as I'm speaking, that if you want to sell some medication, herbal medication, you got to take it there to be approved, to be tested and approved before it can come to the market. So Ghana is, as far as I know, that's my point of reference. As far as Ghana is concerned, if you are buying a locally herbal medication and that seal is not there, you cannot trust it. And even if you sell that and you are caught, you could be prosecuted. So, yes, there is. Okay, then I will come to you.
So we have another question from the social media from Michael Cumberbatch. And he wants to know, with no interest shown by mass media on both sides to promote each other's culture, what avenues are there for West Indian Bajans and African Ghanaians to interact or connect collectively in organizations via sports, commerce, or social groups, etc.?
Thank you very much. That is a beautiful question. I'm going to answer that, but hold your thought. I want to get a question from the sister right back there.
It's not really a question per se. I'm Jamaican, and I remember years ago I also studied archaeology.
Okay.
And we were working on a civil plantation, estate in St. Anne, Jamaica, and there was a very large African village there, and they had removed some burials. And they had done the testing, and it was revealed that they were from the Ghana region in Africa. And the government of Ghana had asked that we repatriate
the bones.
Right. They only sent the bones of the oldest person there, and the rest were reburied at the front of the estate this time instead of the house yard burial situation that they had. But it was very interesting for us working there because we had everything was going wrong that day, and then it dawned on us that nobody had done their libation, and so we stopped and we did that, and we said some prayers for our ancestors, and then everything started to go much more smoothly then. But the whole issue of retention, because I looked at, I was going to make a comment earlier about the disconnect between us as Caribbean people and the Africans, but some of it has come out already. But in Jamaica, I think it's wherever you go, there are varying levels of retention that you will see. Because, for example, still in Jamaica, Kumina is still practiced, and that was I think a Kikongo or something. I don't remember, but it was the Congo region, and they still speak traditional African languages, as well as the Maroons in Jamaica still speak the Crow Mountain, and those are there. But those things are not really. They teach us some words, but they don't. We're not really learning languages in that sense. But thankfully, we're still practicing the dances and the traditional burial practices are still being used, and dances that are done at burials, at 9 nights or whatever. They're still going there. I was surprised the other day I was in Suriname, and I saw in one of the Maroon communities, and the lady had twins, and they were just after being born for a few days or something. And they were just coming out and the celebration that was taking place within the community.
Yep.
And I myself felt that I was truly a part of this thing and that I had been embraced by these persons who still had a deeper connection to their heritage. So I think even in our Caribbean region, we can still find ways of persons that have that connection with their heritage by really these still authentic experiences that are happening. I'm not talking the ones that are there for tourism purposes. But I think there are ways for us to still share in the experiences of what's happening and really connect.
Yeah. In fact, let me surprise you that my daughter, who's my last born, my daughter was born in the U.S. When she was born, as a father, I insisted that my daughter be named traditionally. And a friend, you guess who did the naming ceremony? A friend of mine who was also a pastor. So, and that day was the best day of my life. And it wasn't in New York. You know, you may think that it's New York where the blacks are there, or it was done in Iowa, rural Iowa, in the United States Midwest. But the people then realized that, oh, is that how you people say yes? And they were, so their mouths were dropped based on that. So on that note, I'm coming to answer that question, which was how are we going to, it looks like people, the connection ain't coming that right. So how are we going to get this connection going? One of them is what we're doing here. Like this, getting programs. And then two, and it's very important, if our governments will have the political will to embrace the African culture also in the educating of the young generation. I'm not talking about history, because in history you will learn this little bit and pieces here, but I mean culture. When I say culture, is the way of life as an African, so that some of detoxing of the mind, like our brother Bob Marley said it, to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery by helping our younger generation to appreciate who they are. Because with that, they then will continue by introducing African cultural studies in school, from primary school to secondary school to university, do some courses in, there is, I don't know, at UWE, do we have African cultural studies? I doubt it, Sister Diana. I don't think so. I mean, I've got to check with Dr. Carter and see. But, you know, something like that, that is one. Two, we got media. It is not fully being used. We got radio stations and TV stations where we can link up. And I know one lady called Lady MV, or NV, who is Natasha Bainu, who is a Barbadian, lives in New York, but broadcasts in African countries. So who has been to Ghana, have shared her, I remember when she was in Ghana, she was at the radio station, so I went on Facebook listening to her, and she was checking these DJs, telling the DJs some Bajan words and Bajan balances and some Bajan music. They were all like, woo! I said, yeah. You all check it out. And them also teaching her. And how they then began to appreciate. And how some of them long to come to Barbados to let the Barbadian know that, hey, we're also there. And get some Barbadian. Now, I would like to see RPB, who happens to be my best, my number one Calypso soca man. I would like to see RPB on stage in Ghana, you know, singing something is happening and it's exciting. I don't want to sing it because RPB will not forgive me. Yeah. So there are so many ways that we can interact and connect.
We have one last question.
And then we're done.
Social media. And it's from Sherry Cummings West. You stated that slavery began with Islam, but how do you explain domestic slavery and variations of in Ghana since
antiquities?
Thank you. And the participation of certain groups like the Akan and Zafonte who took advantage of the transatlantic stage with European, and she is drawing on the word of Akoshu Herbi.
What? What's the word there? AKOSUA PERBI. My pronunciation is not. Okay. Well, I would like to say that the term slavery is overused, and Ghana and different meanings for slavery in our dialect. Let me give you an example, and it's me, so I will. My mother, my birth mother, was not a slave, but she, when she was 8 years old, according to her, my aunt, who is like my mother now, when her mother was going into marriage, her mother asked my mother's grandmother, who were two close friends, that she needs someone, a girl, to come and go with her daughter into marriage to help her to be part of it. My mother and her cousin were brought to my now grandmother, and they became, you see, for the term, you may term it as slaves, but they were not slaves. They were servants, if we should use the term loosely. But guess what? That dissipated, and then it turned out to be family. So that family, I had not even visited my own family until I was like 8 or 10 years. That is when my uncle died, that I went to visit home, and I realized that I have some cousins that I didn't know. Even my own aunt, my mother's own two sisters, I didn't know until I got there. But the other family were my family. And as I said, in every cultural condition, people abuse. You see, people begin to use their position and manipulate it to suit them. But that does not mean that it is the norm. Come on, if you come to Barbados, there are a whole lot of things that happen that are not Barbadian, but it happens. Should we say that it is the culture of Barbados? It is some specific individuals in the community who take advantage of what is happening that people are noticing and use it and abuse it for their advantage. If you want me to go on, I can go on, but this is how these things came about. Because somebody, my mother and my aunt, if her mother had not seen my mother as a family, she might have mistreated her, might have disposed her of, or that kind of thing. But I am considered as a member of that family. In fact, right now, my aunt, I am his second born son, even though I'm not biologically and even blood related. Should anything happen to her now, I will be one of the first to be called. Kobina, your mom, that, and I have to go. That is not slavery. So, Brother Cumberbatch, there is more to talk about that. We just don't take it like that. But I believe I had just given you a little gist for you to move on from there. So thank you.
Yes.
I know we don't discuss this, but this is something I feel I want to put out there, and that is that we have certain myths about Barbados, which I think we need to try to dispel. We have to challenge. One is the notion that Barbadians or any other African descendants were completely strict. I think that we have to recognize that that is not so. And the other one is the question of Africans not being welcoming. My experience in Ghana, very short trip, but that was otherwise. I recognize that Africans within Africa are in fact happy to see their brothers and sisters and welcome them back. I think those are two things that we need to have some further discussion on.
Thank you very much for bringing that up, because it is very true that that is there. But you know that I didn't say completely. I said it was strict. They were strict. But certain things, they will not allow them to strip them. It was still in them. All right, thanks.
Well, that brings us to the close of this evening's proceedings, or at least the formal part of the proceedings. I'm sure that some of you will still want to maybe chat a bit, but I would like to thank you all for coming. I'd particularly like to thank Solomon for sharing his time and his knowledge with us this evening. It's been a pleasure having you, and I hope we all learned something this evening that's worthy of thinking on and discussing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.